All right, sounds good.
All righty. Welcome, those of you in Internet World Land and on Facebook and throughout, everywhere. That's right. This is Clubhouse Chatter. I'm Brian. Here's the man, the myth, the legend, Norm Ordez.
I don't know about that. More the myth.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
You're the legend, and I have the man, John D'Acquisto, online. Good morning, Johnny D.
Hey, what's up, Normie?
Another day in paradise, man. I'm getting excited for another baseball season, and
yes,
holy moly, we're getting close.
Yeah, we're getting real close. We got about, according to my calendar, 1 month exactly before the first game starts for the Arizona Diamondbacks against the Arizona State Sun Devils.
Ooh, that's going to be a fun one.
It's going to be a charity game at Talking Stick. And but we are getting prepped prior to that for all the new things coming into baseball this year, and we're looking forward to having a very interesting season this year.
You know, with all the influx of these young players, man, it's exciting times with Major League Baseball.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
You've got
there's a lot of talent.
Oh, isn't there? I mean, you know, when you think back to with your playing days, I mean, was there excitement about, you know, like with you guys that were coming up? Was there a ton of excitement like what there is today? I know it's different times, and, you know, the media back then isn't what it is today with all the different outlets. But what was the excitement level, you know, with you guys coming up?
Well, it was interesting, you know, because you look back at some of the articles that were written when I was writing the book, Fastball John. You know, we went back and looked at the articles that were written about when I was coming up, you know, because that was part of the book's history. And, you know, it was how they generated the excitement to the fans. Hey, we got this kid coming up, you know, it's won 17 games in Fresno, another 16 in Phoenix, and made a jump in between from Double-A. And, you know, he could be very promising, you know, winning 16 games at the age of 20. You know, things like that were said to generate the excitement to the fans. So when I showed up on the scene at 19, they were already prepping me, you know, for a big league jump.
Right.
And, you know, and they did that with Chris Spire. They did that with Pete Falcone. They did that with Frank Rosselli. You know, all the kids coming up with Steve Olivares, who was my roommate in Phoenix, with Maddox and Matthews. You know, remember, we had a very young team coming up that were really talented ball players. And, you know, you look at Maddox, Matthews, Bonds outfield, you know, that was one of the fastest outfields in the history of the game of baseball, and no one ever came out and really made a statement to that fact that you had a track team right there, a relay team,
right,
you know, basically out in the outfield. 9.5, 9.3, and 9.5.
That's crazy.
Runners.
That's crazy.
That was insane. That was insane. You know, I saw things that those two guys did, Maddox and Matthews and Bonds. I mean, you know, the three of them together. They would come in from, say, you know, someone would hit one in the gap, and they would be on first and second, and they would be rounding the bases coming in. One would slide to the right at home, and the other one would slide to the left, try tagging 2 feet apart from each other.
Right. So,
I mean, right, Norm, it was insane. You know,
and that was before, you know, Twitter and Facebook and all these, you know, and they had to do this all by, like, word of mouth and newspapers, radio, yeah.
For the idiom, the press, you know, press conferences back then were Charlie's office and talk with him. That was the press conference. Or they would go up to the player's locker.
Right.
They would around the player's locker. Now, today, they have a special room put aside to go and ask their questions to the players, and it's all controlled.
Right.
And it wasn't controlled. It was shoot from the hip. Here's a question, and it was what I was used to, and now I see today it was in a controlled atmosphere, and they're telling you what the questions are before you get there.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yep. But that's
So speaking of a younger John D'Acquisto, so back in the day, you threw 102, about 102 and a half on a slow gun, and you actually topped out at 107.
That's correct. Yes.
And how many other guys now? How many other guys like that threw hard like that back in the day?
Nolan Ryan.
And that's about it.
Well, you had Goose Gossage, who averaged 98. You had J.R. Richards, about it the same. He hit 100 once in a while. Seaver was about 94, 95 with the 93-mile-an-hour slider. There weren't many that threw that hard besides Goose, myself, and J.R., and Nolan. That was about it. And, the rest were in the 90s, respectively in the 90s. And then you had the guys that could pitch, that threw 88, 89, 90, but had good breaking stuff and off-speed pitches. But predominantly, if you wanted to look for hard-throwing pitchers, you went to the Giants. The Giants were the ones that were notorious for having guys that threw over, 95, 96 miles an hour. That's what they looked for. And, they went into that new trend after, the older guys left, like Gaylord and Marichal. When they left, and Ronnie Bryant, was the tail end of that, they started getting away from the curveball, fastball, curveball, changeup pitchers, i.e. Tom Bradley, Braun, and those guys. They went into looking at the hard-throwing fastball slider pitchers to keep the ball on the ground. Mm-hmm. Good hard sinker at 93, 94, and a good slider. Then the cutter came in. That was Don McMahon's regime. All of us hard throwers, Montefiusco, Ed Halicki, we all threw in the high 90s, in the mid-90s. Halicki was 95, Montefiusco was 95, 96, then myself at 102, and even after I got hurt, I was averaging 98 to 100.
Jeez.
After I got hurt. So, and then you had Petey Falcone come into the mix, and he was throwing 94, 95, and then you had Mike Caldwell, who was a sinker slider, who threw 93, 94 with excellent control and a real good slider and changeup. So then you started to see those changes happen in the Giant organization, and not just in the Giant organization, but in all of baseball. All the way into Chicago with the Cubs, and all the way into Atlanta with that pitching staff there with Morton and Buzz Capra. They were all good sinker slider pitchers and good off speed. And you go to the Phillies, you're looking at the same thing with Carlton throwing that good fastball and that slurve that he had. The transition began to change to keep the ball in and down on the ground. We see a lot of that, and everyone changed at the same time because the theories were being traded between each other on what they thought was acceptable. Like now, in this trend of Major League Baseball, better pitchers starting to come back again, like in places like, and you're talking about X, them, they are using their slider a lot more. Mm-hmm. They're keeping the ball on the ground because it's a launching pad.
Right.
Not about it. Elevation in baseball. It's in Atlanta. First, of course, is Colorado.
Right.
Look at those particular three ball clubs, and you're looking at sinker slider pitchers are starting to show up because they've got to keep the ball on the ground and keep the runs down. So you're starting to see these transitions begin. Good hard-throwing pitchers, and but they determine the velocity, the way they take the velos nowadays at the point of release, not when it plate, like what they did back when I pitched. All my readings were across the plate, not at point of release, and that's why you're saying 107 is a pretty good call.
Right. Now it's crazy because of all, for the most part, with the exception of the teams that you mentioned, Colorado, you don't, like you look at like the St. Louis Cardinals, you don't make the pitching staff because, you got to throw 100.
Yep. That's exactly correct. You've got to throw 96, 97 to 100, or you're not on here. Matheny likes hard-throwing pitchers. It shows in his pitching staff. I mean, it's evident. I mean, it's right there. You'll see Cleveland with Tito managing. He's got a lot of hard throwers, good control, good breaking stuff, and changeups. All right, most of them throw 95 plus. Every time I'm looking up on the board, it's 95, 96, 95, 96, 97, 100. So you look at that, you see they're all earmarked the same way pretty much because that's where success dictates particular demand for speed. It has a good sword. That's why there's a lot of arm injuries also.
That is true. Yeah.
Guys trying to throw so. That's why you see a lot of injuries.
So now, you were runner-up for the Sporting News NL Rookie of the Year. And Baker.
Actually, I got the Sporting News Rookie of the Year.
Oh, you did, but
the Rookie Pitcher of the Year.
Okay.
For the National League Rookie of the Year, to Bake McBride. Yeah.
And now you played against Bake McBride. Talk a little bit about Bake McBride. I think Bake McBride is like one of the most underrated ball players that ever played the game.
Oh, absolutely. I played against him and played with him. Bake McBride was flat fast. The typical Busch Stadium, hit it in the gap and run like hell.
Right.
That was the mold that St. Louis had back there because of Lou Brock. Power, but gappers. The ball in the gap and could run and get a triple, make a double into a triple. Get on first and steal second. Remember now, in his rookie year, he hit 321, I believe.
Yeah, something like that.
And yeah, it was insane. And every time I'd see Bake, when he come out of the clubhouse doors at Candlestick, to come play us, I'd always say, "Hey, man, why don't you slow down? You're getting into my votes. Slow down a little bit." And he would just laugh, and because he'd always come up and say, "Hey, looks like it's you and me battling for it," and we'd talk about it, but it was all in jest most of the time, and it's kind of fun. To be able to have that camaraderie, but yet, when you go out between the white lines, it's battle time, man.
Oh, yeah,
it's
definitely.
Battle time.
Definitely.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. So, yeah. But he was a great player, and defensively, one of the best at getting a jump on a ball. He would play shallow, which really surprised me how shallow he played. And when I played with him in St. Louis, it was like, geez, man, you really play shallow. He goes, well, I can go back well, and I let my speed kind of take that difference off. So if anything's hit short in front of me, I've got it. And so he made himself, able to catch the ball in the gap, the ball deep to center, or he'd catch the ball shallow. So he found a happy medium spot where he could do both. And I just have problems with the one in front because that line drive at you is hard to determine.
Right.
And at you what it's going to do, if it's going to sink or go over your head. He was really good at catching those. Quite a player. He,
like I said, one of the more underrated players, I think. And so I remember as a kid, watching you guys, because I grew up in Idaho, and so we had WTBS. We'd get WTBS and watch the Atlanta Braves. And so that's where, and our next guest, Kurt Bavacqua, I mean, that's how I came to, know about you guys. And I mean, God, that was back then. It was a blast watching baseball. It really was.
Well, I got something funny to tell you, Normie. Kurt's going to be working with me at the MLB.
Nice.
He just got hired, so we're getting him trained for the field timing coordinator spot. So he's excited about that, and it's good to have my bud. Kurt and I have been good friends for many years, and having him working with us now is quite a thrill to have a good friend on board, that knows what's going on with the game. So it's going to be exciting.
And Kurt was a hell of a ball player in his day as well. I mean, people always talk about, the makeup of a roster. And, Kurt Bavacqua was, primarily a backup infielder. But, you're not on a Major League Baseball roster if you suck.
Of course.
You've got to be a hell of a ball player.
You have to have a gimmick. You have to have a gimmick. Okay.
And so in Bavacqua, man, he was just, I mean, he was solid, and he definitely, earned his place on the roster.
Well, what Kurt was really good at, Normie, he could come off the bench, and he would study pitchers all the time. He would study their sequences, what they would throw to different hitters, right-handers, left-handers, etc., but primarily right-handers because that's what he was. But he would see how they would make a mistake, and he would just study them. So when he went up to the plate as a pinch hitter, he would get a hit, or he would hit a home run, or he would hit an extra base hit hard. And one of the things, Kurt might have hit like 220, but if you look at his pinch hitting role, he hit way over 300.
Right.
And it was like that's what his primary use was, and that's what took the San Diego Padres into the a chance for the World Series, the National League title, was because of Kurt hitting that home run along with Steve Garvey.
Yeah.
So you look at that and you say, what is the value of Kurt Bavacqua? Where Lasorda goes off and says he couldn't hit his way out of a paper bag? Who's going to the frickin' World Series?
That's right.
Padres. Why? Because the guy who couldn't hit his way out of a paper bag just hit the ball out of the ballpark.
And he goes on in that World Series. He goes on and hit 412 and a couple of home runs.
Thank you very much.
He was amazing, And I mean, and it shows you the value of players like that. They're not necessarily your 162 game players, everyday players, but when you need somebody to come off the bench and pinch hit, pitch run, play the field in later innings, and those guys are just as important, if not more important, than your everyday star.
Absolutely. And those are guys that are key to the ball club's success. Kurt was key to our success in 1978 in making us a winning ball club. We had a lot of chances where we could win games, and Kurt was responsible for those wins. And then, of course, I was there to save them, along with Raleigh Fingers. But my attempts on saves was 1,000. I did not fail on one. I had no blown saves. And my saves were 3 and 4 innings long. Raleigh he tied the record. If I wasn't there, Raleigh probably would have broke the record.
Wow.
But because I was there, I would spell Raleigh and keep him fresh, and we went from there. It was the first time that the San Diego Padres had a winning season. We won 84 games. And it's different from when you're winning 69 games and losing 100.
Right.
It's like, it was really refreshing. And the place was packed. Every time we were home to play, the place was packed because we were vying for first place. And it was a fun year. We had a fun year that year. But Kurt was very responsible, for that action to happen, along with Gaylord, myself, and Raleigh, and a few guys that had to really pick up the threads. Eric Rasmussen won 14 games that year. We had a lot of good guys that stepped up to the plate to make it a winning season.
So you have a book out, Fastball
Yes, sir.
John. Tell us a little bit about Fastball John.
Fastball John, I decided through friends on Facebook kept hounding me, to write a book because I was writing short stories about my career, about my experiences, and they finally said, "Why don't you write a book?" And I was writing for InStream Sports at the time with Dave Jordan, and so I talked to Dave about it, and he said, "Nah, it's too much work. We'll just keep the short stories." Well, we kept doing short stories. We had 17 short stories. There's 17 chapters right there.
Yep.
And I said, "David, we got 17 chapters already in the book." And he goes, "You're right. Well, we could really make this into something." And so we decided to go ahead and write the book. There's 27 chapters in the book. Does that ring a bell? 27 outs in a game?
Yep. That's awesome.
That book is molded right to the baseball fan, and it talks about my experience from Little League in San Diego all the way up to the end of my career when I had a little bit of trouble in my financial business, and what I did to correct that, and how I regained my status back in society, as you would say. But the things I did to fight that. And a lot of people said, "How did you keep yourself together?" It's you kind of nonchalanted it. Well, the only way you get through something like that is to keep peace with yourself and to keep calm. If you start going crazy, you lose control of yourself.
Right.
And just keep and maintain who you are and remember where you came from. And try to get through and figure out what the hell happened. And that's exactly what we did. But the book tells the whole story. The last 2 chapters in the book tell the whole story, how it happened. I never had a chance to tell my side of the story because, it was thrown out of court, given to a lesser magistrate to decide my sentence. And it was crazy. You don't get a day in court. There's a reason for that, because all the witnesses decided that they didn't want to testify because they all lied. And you look at that and you say, who made the big mistake here? So the story starts from the beginning in Little League and runs all the way through the ups, the downs, the relationships, the groupies, the non-groupies, how you get through a major league career and come out alive, at least. And I've seen a lot of my friends, take shotguns to their head, and Mike Flanagan for one, Donnie Moore for another, commit suicide because of this game. So you got to think about how strong a person is. This book talks about the strength. It's very forthright. It's very open, and it is very honest from top to bottom and fact-checked from top to bottom. And all the stories are true experiences of what I went through in my career. It's a fun read because I played with 12 different Hall of Famers and befriended quite a few of them. But I also did very well against the Hall of Famers on the other side of the fence.
That's always good.
Tom Seaver. Yeah, it is always good. And it's like, okay, I'm not a Hall of Famer. I'm just a journeyman pitcher because of the injury that occurred to me. Kind of set me back quite a bit, but I battled back and came back and was able to get back and have some successes. But you look at that and you say, that I quit, like a lot of guys do, but I didn't. I loved the game so much, I wanted to give it my best shot.
Right.
And to be able to say, I gave it my best effort, I tried and became successful at it, and stayed in the game for 10 years plus, you know?
We've got about 5 minutes left.
Story.
We've got about 5 minutes left, and you spoke of the Hall of Fame. And so let's end. I want to throw out the names of a handful of guys on whether you think they should be in the Hall of Fame or not. And now, you know, we got the vote coming up. It's going to be coming out soon to see. And you know, the rumors are, you know, Barry Bonds.
I think, Normie, it's going to be a 5-man Hall of Fame this year.
That's what it's looking like.
That's what it's looking like. So go ahead and shoot the names.
And so now, my question for you is: Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens have made a lot of ground up with this year's ballot. And so here in the next 5 years, it is very possible that they end up in the Hall of Fame. Do they belong? I mean,
think they're aren't they at 68.5%?
They're
70%.
They're close. They're close. Yes.
Are you watching the tracker?
I have been. Tracker? Yes, I have been. And so
that's an excellent site to go to see how it's going, because it's very honest.
Right.
It's very honest. And, well, you know, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, okay. You look at all the different eras that we've had. Dead ball era, juice ball era, juice player era, dead player era, you know, which means it's, you know, forget about the juice, it's gone.
Right.
You know, there's PEDs, there's always been something involved with baseball that has been the old saying of if you're not cheating, you're not trying. I personally went out there as is by myself and tried to beat these guys that were cheating, and I did okay. But if I was cheating, how much better would I have been?
Exactly.
But, okay, and when you play in a sport professionally and there's a lot of money involved, I think the playing field should be level all the way across the board.
Right.
Either A, you allow them to take the PEDs, or B, you allow them not to, and enforce it. Now, there's so much out there today. God only knows they're probably still doing it, but they have different things that they can use.
Right.
I mean, if you're not going to have juiced players, then we'll juice the ball.
Yeah.
Well, they finally came out and said they juiced the ball. So, you know, it's like, okay, so, you know, you have to have some excitement, but when I see a little 160-pound shortstop named Marte, but Diamondbacks hit the ball almost out of L.A. before.
There's something up.
There's something happening.
Yeah.
Okay, come on. There's something happening. So, what names? Fire them at me.
My all-time favorite player, Dale Murphy. I'm on the cusp with Dale Murphy in the Hall of Fame.
I am too.
And, you know,
I am too.
82, 83, he was the best player in Major League Baseball, at least in the National League.
Yeah.
And so, you know, my deal is, you know, I'm not necessarily all about the numbers, because he was one of the best, if not the best, in a small amount of time during the 80s. Was that long enough?
Norm, it's all about contribution. What type of contribution did he make to baseball? Okay? And also on the field, off the field. It's both. Mm-hmm. And Dale's a great guy.
And I think with that said, absolutely, he's a Hall of Famer. I mean, because he is one of the best character guys in the game.
Yeah, exactly. He definitely was. And, you know, it's like you look at that and you say, well, just because of that, I think he should be in, because he is a great guy, and we need a few more Atlanta Braves in you know, in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely.
You know, it'd be kind of nice.
Well, we'll get one. Yeah. We'll get one this year. So Chipper Jones.
Chipper's going in.
And he's a no doubter. I mean, last name.
Yeah, he's about 98%, I think. Right?
Yeah, he's pushing 99, I believe. Yeah. So the last one I want to throw out is an older guy, and that's Veda Pinson. And so, why not?
Why not is the correct statement. Veda Pinson is one of the guys that was consistent. Played the game hard, played the game steady, and played the game a lot.
And he played it right.
And yeah, exactly. So, and one of the greatest baseball names ever. Okay, come on. I mean, we've had some baseball names, but let's just say it, Veda Pinson, man.
Veda Pinson.
I mean, you want to sit there, you sit there and you hear that name. That's a baseball name right there, And I'm all for him going in. Absolutely.
So his son has a kind of a push for him to push for him for the Hall of Fame induction, and I'm behind it. I never got a chance to watch him play personally, so I've seen clips and heard stories and seen his stats, and honestly, I think I would see him into the Hall of Fame before Dale Murphy. Even though I go both ways with Dale, and so John, where can we buy your book?
You can buy my book at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, both are .coms. Also, all the bookstores, Barnes & Noble, you can go in and order one there if you want, or you can reach out to me at my website, Fastball John, and ask, and I have signed copies available for $25.
Nice.
So you can reach out to Fastball John, and I'll send one out to you.
It sounds good. Hey, let's do this again soon. We didn't even touch on your art today.
I know, the art's doing really well.
Oh, I know it is. And you do a great job. And for those of you, you could go to our Clubhouse chatter page, and there's something, John did something for us a couple years ago, and it's awesome. He does great stuff. And once again, Mr. John D. Quister. John, let's do this again. You're personally one of my favorites that comes on the show. And love you. And, hey, baseball season right around the corner.
You got it. Love you too, Normie. We'll see you soon.
All right, Johnny D.
It's artwork by John D. You can look it up.
All right. All right. Hey, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you later.
All right. See you guys later. Take care.
All right, John. Bye.
Echo. Stop. All right, that was great, John Giaquisto.
Johnny's one of my favorites. I mean, he's got a great story to tell. I mean, this is a guy who's hit rock bottom,
right,
because of something, and he's working his way back up. And not only, I mean, he tells it like it is. He's a straight shooter. He won't sugarcoat anything.
No, he's very transparent about everything.
Absolutely,
everything.
And 107 miles an hour.
Wow.
Touch that, Brian.
67 is about what I throw. Used to throw.
Hey,
that's fast.
We are sponsored by.
We are.
Baseballisms.com. If you like my shirt, our hats, you can find them at baseballisms.com. Also sponsored by Dwayne at Northwest IndependentBaseballLeague.org. Hey, they're beginning their season in April. BaseballDudes.com. Chris Gazelle up there in Vancouver, Washington. Mitch Canham, building an athlete sports education, basebypros.com. His dad, Mark Canham, does the Clubhouse Chatter shirts for us. And we stream live every time, YamilToday.com, as well as on Facebook. And you can shoot me an email, normbo18@gmail.com. And you can find us on all the major media, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, iTunes.
You name it.
Everywhere, Podomatic.
We're everywhere.
Hey, we'll be back at 9:30 with Kurt Bavacqua, former major leaguers. We'll be back.